US News just came out with their best diets of 2022, and here's why I think their rankings are absolute. So at the beginning of every year, the US News always puts together this panel of people, they call them experts, that come together and rank 40 of the most popular diets. And they release this and they kind of give their recommendations for what you might be following. And so the keto diet and the modified keto diet actually ended up very, very low on the list. Not last, but very close to last. So I want to discuss with you the criteria that they use to rank these diets. And I want to go through every single one of them and point out how these experts missed the science on each one of these areas. So here we go. So if you look at the criteria that each one of these experts ranked the diets on, it was underneath several different characteristics. The first one being the diet's capacity to generate short-term weight loss. The second one is the diet's capacity to generate long-term weight loss. The third one being the nutritional completeness of the diet. Then it was the ease in which the diet can be followed, the diet's safety, the diet's ability of avoiding and controlling heart disease, and the diet's ability of avoiding and controlling diabetes. So several different categories, of which if you follow this channel or you've been a listener to Ketogenic.com for a long time, you understand that there's plenty of benefits even beyond weight loss that they touch on that a ketogenic diet should thrive in. But sadly, they missed the science. So here's where they ranked keto based on those criteria. For short-term weight loss, they ranked it a 3.7 out of 5, which blows my mind. If there's one category that they wanted to give a little bone to keto on, it should have been short-term weight loss. The data is overwhelmingly clear that keto can help with short-term weight loss, and they gave it a 3.7 out of 5. Like, how you don't give that a 5 out of 5 it blows my mind. Long-term weight loss, they throttled it down and gave them a 2.2 out of 5. So keto, 2.2 out of 5, they said it's not very good for long-term weight loss. It's easy to follow, and we're living in 2022 now. It's easy to follow. They ranked a 1.4 out of 5. If we were living in 1980, I'd say maybe this is a correct statement. Today, it is very, very easy to follow a ketogenic diet, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. And then its healthy aspect, they ranked a 1.9 out of 5. Sadly missing the mark, and I think the overall score that they gave it, 2 out of 5. They gave the keto diet a 2 out of 5, and out of 40 diets, I believe it ranked 37th. Let's go through each one of these categories and explain where they missed the mark. So let's start with short-term weight loss, right? The area in which I don't think anyone on the planet would argue that keto can see tremendous success with, right? It's actually the people who are opponents to keto will argue, oh, it only helps with short-term weight loss.
What can it do, right? It can help you lose weight. It can. And you'll hear someone say, I lost 20 pounds. I'm no longer on my type 2 diabetes medication. And that is likely true.
So you have people who hate keto and will still argue that keto helps with short-term weight loss, and yet we get a ranking of 3.7 out of 5. And so if we're going to stick with the science, we should stick with what does the science say in terms of short-term weight loss. And there's actually been studies that have been published on this, several studies showing that you can lose several kilos even in 1 week being on a ketogenic diet, right? And if we're solely talking about weight, obviously there's things like water, there's fat mass, and there's muscle that constitute weight. A lot of it early on in keto can be water weight that you're losing from lowering carbohydrates, decreasing your glycogen stores. So a lot of that early on weight may be water weight. They didn't differentiate or talk about that at all during this. They weren't saying, oh, let's talk about short-term fat loss or short-term changes in body composition, hint in which keto would still thrive. But they were just talking about weight. And several studies show that you can lose several kilos in just a short period of time on keto. One of the studies that I wanted to point out was this study where they looked at individuals over 4 weeks, obese men over 4 weeks, and they had them eat ad libitum. And ad libitum in research means as much as you want. Imagine being in a research study and they just say, hey, we're not going to control your calorie intake. You don't need to track on MyFitnessPal or whatever. You can just eat as much as you want. And they had people eating a ketogenic diet versus a moderate carbohydrate diet. The individuals on the keto diet lost 6.34 kilograms. The individuals on a moderate carb diet lost 4.35 kilos. So almost 2 full kilos more in 4 weeks, just eating a keto diet versus a moderate carb diet, and didn't control calories. There was really no significant difference between calories between the two conditions. And if you look after 4 months of eating, 85% of the individuals on a ketogenic diet lost greater than 10% of their body weight, while only 17% in the low calorie group accomplished the same thing in a different study published in Nature, right? You're seeing it over and over again. Like, the data is mind-boggling, overwhelming that keto can help with short-term weight loss, and still it ranked a 3.7 out of 5, when in reality it should have got a 5 out of 5. Next, let's chat long-term weight loss, one that keto often gets a stigma for, or often gets knocked down because, oh, you can't sustain it. There's no long-term weight loss studies that have been done. First off, there's very few studies that have ever been done on what someone would consider long-term weight loss doing any protocol. If you've ever done research, or if you've ever been in a research study, imagine trying to control subjects for a year or longer. It is very, very difficult to do. It doesn't matter which diet, which protocol, which intervention, you typically see a ridiculous dropout rate anytime over 6 months. So for me, long-term is anything over 6 months, but you can make the argument that it's anything over a year when it comes to published research. And when you do look at the research, there was one study that found that 66 obese individuals with high cholesterol were able to lower their weight and cholesterol levels with a ketogenic diet over 56 weeks, right? Which is over a year. There was another meta-analysis that found that individuals assigned to a ketogenic diet achieved greater weight loss than those assigned to a low-fat diet long-term, right? And this is a meta-analysis. They looked at all these different studies that were done and published over 12 months in duration and found that a ketogenic diet was able to have greater weight loss long-term, over a year, than a low-fat diet. So my question is, getting a ranking of 2.2 out of 5 stars, how can you rank it that way when the meta-analyses show that keto has greater benefits for long-term weight loss than a low-fat diet? So every other diet that's on this list that is a low-fat diet should fall below a 2.2 ranking than a ketogenic diet, if we're going by the science. And that's where my frustration comes. Is like, if we're going to follow the science, and studies show that you can have significant long-term weight loss with a ketogenic diet, and it's published. The next category is nutritional completeness. I think this is just from a lack of understanding of what constitutes a well-formulated ketogenic diet. Listen, any diet that you do, if you're eating a ton of processed foods, it's not going to have a great nutritional profile. And some of the comments made by some of these experts were, oh, any diet that's high in red meat and a bunch of bacon, there's no way it can be nutritionally complete. Well, yes, if you're going to McDonald's and having a Big Mac without a bun every single meal, yeah, I don't care if you're keto, I don't care if you're calling yourself paleo, whatever it is, that's not nutritionally complete. I agree. But the reality is, a well-formulated ketogenic diet is absolutely nutritionally complete. You're eating fibrous carbohydrates, right? You're eating green leafy vegetables. You're having quality protein intake primarily from meat, but through other sources as well. You have dairy, you have poultry, you have all these different things that you're consuming that are high quality forms of meat, not Impossible Burgers, high quality forms of protein that you're consuming, and you're having adequate amounts of fat. You're not just slugging down oils and heavy cream Rather, you're having things like avocados, which we know have a ton of benefits, right? It's my sign. So as far as nutritional completeness is concerned, I think a 1.6 is an unfair ranking. I can understand why there would be some points subtracted for people who are not doing a well-formulated ketogenic diet and just eating Big Macs and Five Guys without the bun all the time. But if you're eating a well-formulated ketogenic diet and you're incorporating even things like blueberries, which you can incorporate in on a well-formulated ketogenic diet, it is absolutely nutritionally complete. Next category was ease of following. They gave it a 1.4 out of 5. Like I said, if we're in 1980, I'd agree with this recommendation. Today, there are so many options for you to sustain a well-formulated ketogenic diet. You have legitimate cauliflower pizzas, not the one that are half cauliflower, half wheat and all this stuff, like legitimately pre-made cauliflower crust pizzas. You have all low-carb snacks, some of which are junk. I get it, the ones that have maltitol and some of these things that are going to destroy your stomach and spike your glucose. But there's a lot of really good keto snack options that are out there now. And now there's never been a more available source or supply of foods that fit a ketogenic diet. You're having restaurants make keto bowls or low carb bowls. You're having restaurants offer cauliflower mashed potatoes or even cauliflower rice. Like, there's never been a easier time to follow and sustain a ketogenic diet. So I don't agree with a 1.4 out of 5. I think it should be probably in the higher 3, maybe even the 4 ranking as well. The next ranking is Saftey, and they gave it a 2.5 out of stars, which, again, is very alarming from this fact that no studies show that a well-formulated ketogenic diet has any adverse safety events. If anything, it's actually doing the opposite. Again, if you're calling keto eating a Big Mac without a bun, and that's all you're having, and you're guzzling it down with heavy cream, yeah, it's probably not safe. That's an issue. But the reality is, if you're sticking to what 99% of people in the keto community are eating, it is extremely safe. There's no negative adverse events that have been published as far as kidney, liver, heart, any blood lipids, which is a whole nother topic within itself of people being afraid that keto is going to drastically shoot up your cholesterol and cause your triglycerides to go high. That's a whole nother topic. But if you want to hear more about that, let me know in the comments and we'll do a whole discussion on that as well. The next topic is heart healthy. They gave this a 1.9 out of 5. Again, I think just due to a lack of information or understanding of what constitutes a ketogenic diet and being stuck in the concept that they're thinking that cholesterol is the be-all end-all for heart disease, which we now know is not true. I feel like Ansel Keys is coming back and haunting us all over again with these experts. It's like, guys, come on, like, stay up to date with the science and where we're at. The reality is there's been studies that have been published on this where they found that 6 weeks of being on a ketogenic diet, quote unquote, from the study, the ketogenic diet does not have negative effects on cardiovascular disease risk and may actually improve lipid disorders characteristic of atherosclerosis, right? Which we know is not good for the heart. Study after study after study shows this. Again, we're talking about people eating a well-formulated ketogenic diet. There are now new studies showing that ketones can help rescue the failing heart. So failing hearts, it can actually come in and provide a new energy source to help the heart. Study after study shows this. I think it's an inappropriate ranking to give it a 1.9 out of 5 and really stems from a lack of information and understanding of what truly constitutes keto and cholesterol as a whole. Last but certainly not least, it's managing or preventing diabetes. Again, an area that I would look at very similar to short-term weight loss, where it's like, I thought the data was overwhelmingly clear, but it's either they're just ignoring it or just not up to date with the research. They gave it a 2.6 out of 5 stars. I don't know how a lot of these other diets got ahead of it, but if you look at the research being done by Virta Health alone, Virta Health is a great company out of California by my friends, Dr. Jeff Volek and Dr. Steve Finney. They are showing complete reversal of type 2 diabetes with a monitored ketogenic diet protocol. Complete reversal. Some of their studies are like astounding. If you were to look at it, it would beat every drug that's out on the market. For example, one of their studies shows that their protocol lowered glycemic control medication, everything other than metformin, from 55.7 to 26.8%. Cut it in half. Including insulin, which they reduced by 62%. You know how powerful that is? To be able to reduce your insulin load or completely get off of it. Amazing. And if you look at resolution of diabetes, you have 53.5% reversal and 17% getting back out of remission. It's insane. It is insane. You're seeing ridiculous results when you're comparing a ketogenic diet to control group, right? 53 to 17% as far as helping with reversal of diabetes. And you're going to give it a ranking of 2.6 out of 5 stars. Frustrating because the data is pretty clear. Granted, it's new data, so maybe they're not up to date with it. But a well-formulated ketogenic diet, if there's one application that many doctors are starting to explore, it is first dialing in your nutrition and a low carbohydrate, protein focused, adequate fat focused diet. I'll even leave the name keto aside, is one of the first avenues or first choices for many of these doctors, and rightfully so. And it should be considered a lot better in this breakdown. So one of the things that, just to wrap this up, there are discrepancies in the top ranked diets that are frustrating, right? There's actually been studies looking at the Weight Watchers diet versus the ketogenic diet and found that the ketogenic diet was superior in terms of weight loss than the Weight Watchers group after 24 weeks and had significant improvements in metabolic health. And yet the Weight Watchers diet ranked higher than keto. How did we miss that mark? So there's discrepancies there. And then even the Biggest Loser diet, which blows my mind. You guys have heard me speak out on this before. The Biggest Loser diet still ranked higher. I think it ranked at number 20 compared to the ketogenic diet. And this is a diet in which there's studies that have been published that their metabolism after being on the show, granted it may not be the same as the diet that they're recommending or calling the Biggest Loser diet, but after being on the show, individuals who were on the Biggest Loser's metabolism was still suppressed 6 years after being on the show. That's a really big problem. And as far as like safety is concerned, it's still ranked higher than keto, which again, discrepancies in the ranking and clearly show that it's not accurate of what the data shows. Honestly, it's frustrating and it's disappointing that keto doesn't get its fair shake when it comes to these rankings or just analyzed overall. Like if we were to follow the research and follow the science, it's pretty evident and it's pretty clear, and we don't give it the shot that it should. And one of the things I just want to close this out with is the U.S. News is owned by, I might mess his name up, but I think it's Mortimer Zuckerman. He's an incredible guy. He's made several contributions to highly regarded research institutions like Columbia University. They actually have something called the Zuckerman Institute created, which their mission is to decipher the brain, including effective treatments for disorders like Alzheimer's and autism. So one of the things I just want to make a plea here at the end, Mr. Zuckerman, one area you might want to suggest to your scientists is to start looking at utilizing alternative sources of fuel like ketones to overcome a lot of these neurological deficits that we see in these neurodegenerative diseases. I think that would be a great next step at the Institute and some of the research you're doing, because there's plenty of research showing it. We need to further that as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Hopefully you got some value and got to understand a little bit why I don't feel like this is a great representation, why keto's ranked the worst diet. I think people love to play on the buzzword because so many people know a keto diet, are on a keto diet, and are planning to do it. And as always, we are here to help break down the science and help you understand how to start, succeed, and sustain a ketogenic diet. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.